Just let it roll, let it roll, let it roll. I just gotta get my heebie-jeebies because you're just too funny. Yeah, the blooper reel. All right. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another Street Pilots video. So first thing I want to address, I know it's been a minute. I was doing an Army course. For those of you that are Canadian, I just finished POQ. For those that aren't Canadian, I finished my leadership course as I am getting promoted this year. So I apologize for the delays. But in good news, while I was gone to shitty old Shiloh, we got a bunch of parts. I don't know if you can see them behind me, but we are going to have a bunch of videos for you. We got the 240 wheel install happening. We have an S&S intake install happening. We have Joker machine pegs and a shifter rod happening. We have a Street Pilots fender, Street Pilots fork blinkers happening. We're finishing off the Freedom exhaust as they sent us the correct parts. And then eventually, once the bike is done, we're going to take it to a dyno. And then to toss on top of all of that, what's happening next is that my bike got a new interesting sponsorship for something to do with the primary cover that we'll be also doing and demonstrating a new part that's coming over to the market. So without further ado, let's complete this exhaust. All right, guys. So the first thing we're going to do in this series of videos is we are going to finish off the Freedom Performance exhaust. So what had transpired in the last time is that these clamps here and the nuts, bolts, and the backing plate was sent to us from the Combat Tune to 1 instead of the Radical Radius, which is an honest mistake, and Freedom was very quick to rectify it, so we greatly appreciate it. So to finish this off, where we left off last time is that we mounted the bracket here loosely. We secured the pipes loosely to the cylinders, and now we have to mount the lower half of the pipes. So things that are going to happen is first, we're going to slip on the brackets that will clamp the lower half of the exhaust to the higher first so that we don't forget about it and then don't have to take stuff off to put them on. And secondly, even if you do forget it, sometimes you can kind of get them on somehow. I don't recommend opening these up and deforming them to do so because it sucks really badly to try to reclamp them afterwards. In addition, I recommend using some kind of penetrant oil or oily substance to lube up the pipes so that everything slips on easier. Even though these are brand new, there is a little bit of crud and what looks like maybe some oxidization that's happening on these, so which will make this much tougher than it needs to be, so use some kind of penetrant. So the things that are going to be happening is that we're going to slip this pipe on. At the back of this pipe, we have two ports. One is going to be for a bracket that has two welded nuts to it that are threaded. They're going to slip into the top portion of the pipe, and then you're going to thread two bolts from the back of the bracket into this threaded bracket. And then the bottom half, you're going to slip in a nut into it, and then through the bottom portion, you're going to thread the last bolt to secure this. So for the next portion, I'm going to lube it up and I'm going to stick it all together. That came off funny coming out of my mouth, but nonetheless, we're going to proceed with this. And then I'm going to secure all the hardware because for now, I want to have some flexibility to have things aligned. And since I'm in a proud gun house here, instead of using any penetrant, because we didn't have any WD-40, we're going to use some gun lube. So let's lube this puppy up. And for those wondering, like, oh no, you're putting oil on your exhaust, no big deal. What's going to happen is it's going to burn off. It might smell funky for a few couple seconds, but it is in your exhaust system, so I'm not overly stressed about it. So with some good old lube, we're going to stick some pipes together. And I totally lubed it backwards. There we go. Nice and easy. So if the camera can zoom in, what we're looking for is having no pockets of emptiness in these slits. You want the two pipes fully over each other, otherwise you're going to have exhaust leaks. So now that it's a little bit on, we're going to pull it back to ensure that it aligns back with this bracket as mentioned before. Let's get that puppy together. And you never want to tighten everything up right off the get-go, because if something pinches with metal, it doesn't want to line up afterwards. So that's why up until you're ready to tighten all the components, we usually keep everything loose. For those of you wondering, what is my military trade? If you don't already know, I am a mechanic in the Army. Now in Canada, first of all, I'm Reg Force, which to Americans I am active duty. And then on top of that, unlike our American counterparts, instead of being a striker mechanic, Bradley mechanic, or some kind of specific mechanic, in Canada, we have 4 years of training to get qualified on nearly every single piece of kit that the Queen, or correction, the King owns. So I work on just about everything, but I avoid tanks like the plague just because I like having a life. So work on a bunch of APCs and all that fun jazz, but I don't work on tanks because they require the most maintenance. And if you want to do fun projects such as this, you require to have some kind of modicum of a life. What do we got here? So this bottom nut here is a bit of a doozy, and holding it in place is going to be a little bit of a annoying nuisance, but we'll find a way. And if you're wondering, is this guy actually wearing Crocs? Yes, I just spent 6 weeks marching and running around and doing all the fun Army stuff on my promotion course. So I just want to be comfortable, especially when I'm working on this motorcycle. So don't judge me, or judge me if you please. I don't give a shit. Yes, by the way, the owner of this bike is a cop, so make fun of her all you want. She'll probably end up shooting you anyways. Perfect. Alrighty. So now with all of this on, happens next is that we gotta secure this portion down, and then the next part is going to be putting the black heat shields over. So to secure your 2 exhaust clamps here, it's going to be 2 10 mils. To secure your cylinder bolts is going to be 13 mil. I believe this was a 24, and then the bolts back here are 13. So probably going to do this quickly in a fast track with the camera and quickly secure everything down. So from the last cut to this cut, what you guys have missed out on is that I have to go grab some wrenches. So again, to reiterate, use a 13 mil wrench, get in there, tighten on those header bolts essentially, and then you got to retighten the bolts on this bracket. So I'm going to go do that now. Good. Good. So the nut they have back here is kind of an annoying place where it's going to be annoying to try to hold it. So a trick is I usually try wedging a flathead screwdriver to pinch the nut from rotating, and then I'll try to tighten it on. So that is, if you ever get to do this exhaust, try to wedge in a screwdriver to prevent the nut from rotating. You might have to wedge 2 screwdrivers. If you have a really slim wrench, it could work as well. But in my case, this is the only 13 mil I have on me at this time. There we go. All right, now let's get into these puppies. So this part here is probably the most annoying part of the whole build, is trying to get your header bolts or your exhaust manifold bolts back to being tight on the cylinder heads. You don't have a lot of space to work here, and as seen in the previous video, this will take some time. So as you saw, we have tightened everything together. So now it's all one sturdy piece. And now we are at the time where we're going to put on the black heat shields, which will finish off the look of these pipes. Now, one thing to address is that you get provided with a bunch of hose clamps. They're pretty great. However, Freedom Performance gives you the exact amount that you need for these pipes. And to avoid doing this pain in the ass movement a couple times, pay attention to the fact that these inside pipes that are the upper pipes, they're skinnier, and the bottom pipes are fatter. Therefore, you're going to have two types of hose clamps. Some are going to be skinnier, or they're going to have a less wrap of a diameter, and some are going to be bigger. So make sure that you save the bigger ones for the fatter part of the pipe, and then you save the skinnier ones for the skinnier part to ensure that you don't have to feed these on more than once. So next thing I want to do is I'm going to prep the hose clamps. So first, we're just going to find out which ones are the skinnier ones, which ones are the fatter ones, and to ensure that we put them together and I know which ones to put where. And in our case, we're also lucky because we still have the hardware from the Combat 2-in-1. So if anything, I can always steal an extra hose clamp from there. So as I see here, we have, they're not much different, but enough that it'll make this a pain in the ass. So we have 3 bigger ones and 3 smaller ones. So looking at this pipe, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 ports and 3 ports on this. Oh, correction, there's 1 more. So 7 clamps total. And 1, 2. So 4 skinnier ones and 3 fatter ones. So looking at the shorter pipe is going to have 2 skinnies and 1 fat. And the longer cover is going to have 2 fat ones and 1 skinny one. So now I'm going to go ahead and prep these. And what I mean by prepping them is that you have to open it up, and then you're going to have to feed it through this opening. So it becomes part of this, so you can clamp it around your pipe, and then you can tighten it. So let's do this next. And now to make this also aesthetic and accessible, I am going to want to have my hose clamps either down or up. Let's see, this guy here probably would want it up to be able to access it. So let's do that first. So you want it up. So this part kind of sucks because by unraveling these hose clamps, you kind of deform them, which makes it a pain in the butt to try to get them back together. But when you want cool things, sometimes you just need to embrace the suck. And this is probably the most tedious portion of this exhaust build that you are going to face. So good luck, and please put on your patience pants. This part even frustrates me, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and I have a good sense of patience when it comes down to silly aftermarket things. I will, yeah, so if the camera zooms in, so what we're doing is we're opening up the clamps and we're feeding it in through to set it up so it can be unraveled and slipped over the pipe. It's not the smoothest thing to do. Some of you might be able to roll it through once it's on. From my experience, I've struggled with doing that, so I usually just deform them, force it on, and then I fight with them to get them to close, which may not be the proper way of doing this, but it's the way that I have grown up to do it. Alrighty. So also, just a heads up, you may get a couple scratches on things out of this, so just be careful. But if they are unpreventable, they are unpreventable, and just kind of Do your best. Also, if you're doing this, try, I mean, it's all up if you care or not, but if you care about your client or you're doing this for yourself, have them all face the same way and tuck them as much out of the way as possible to make sure for a clean aesthetic install. And if you can't use a flat head because of the angle of approach, one thing you can always use is I believe these are 8mm, and yes they are. So get in there with an 8mm and tight on the rest. As I said, patience is going to be your best friend in this.
Can you do it?
Yeah. So we will definitely need the hardware for them. Yep. So you want it facing out like so. You want the Freedom sign to show, because that would be roughly the adjustment about there. Is that how you want them? Okay. Does that look pretty even? To me it does, but I'm not the owner. Because I can always change if you want them in a different angle. Do you like this angle? Yeah. Okay. Because they have multiple threaded ports on them for different angles. So that completes the Freedom Performance install. Everything is now tight. Recommendation to anybody who's doing this is ride it around the block, come back, and then ensure that nothing vibrated itself loose. There are torque specs, I believe, in good and tight, but nonetheless, first ride, first vibrations, ensure that everything's still tight. When I had mine installed in California, I actually lost an exhaust stud by the time I got to Vegas. So it does happen. So anyways, keep an eye on it. And then, well, let's start her up and see what she sounds like. Yes, we are indoors. Yes, the bike hasn't been started in like 3 months. So it's going to be loud, but this is just for the coolness factor to finish off this video. Your neighbors are going to fucking hate you. So, we're done with this part. I'm installing more stuff today. You guys are going to see it in little portions so we can keep these series going. But right away, what you see behind me is the next install, the 240.